Okay. All right. Hello, viewers. We are recording an episode for our podcast today. We were supposed to record something else with a second guest, but the second guest couldn't be here today due to some internet issues. So, in any case, we will be talking to Tvisha Gupta today about the differences in the corporate culture between Britain and India. I mean, she is currently working in India, but she has a good deal of experience working in the UK. So yeah, so we'll be trying to talk about how the cultures are similar to a large extent, and maybe also how they are not similar to each other in many other ways. Okay, Tisha, welcome. This is your first time here, so before I begin with the questions, can you spend a few minutes talking about what you do, like your company, or like what took you to the UK for the first time and what brought you back, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure. Hi viewers. So I am an actuary by profession. Uh, for people who do not know or aren't very familiar with this, I majorly work in the insurance segment, trying to quantify the risk in the insurance market. I work in reserving currently, but in the past I've worked with pricing the insurance policies as well. And when I say reserving, it basically means ensuring that at any given point in time, the insurance company has sufficient amount of funds available with itself to pay off any future liabilities. So it's the future that we try to predict using the past experience as well as the current exposure that the company has.
Mm.
And um, right now, I'm working in an insurance company, but before that, I had worked with a big four consulting company as well. So my experiences in India and UK have been in both these places that I did, and consulting world as well as in the core insurance company. And there are quite a few starking differences that I personally observed. Um, the first thing, of course, for a starter like me, when I first entered the UK, was the timing difference. Uh, I used to reach office by something like 8:30, and I could already see people there sitting much before I had come. So India still has that 9:30, 10 kind of start time for office. And we tend to go on till quite late as well. We don't mind overworking or stretching ourselves. But what I realized there was that people were very particular about their work-life balance, about what they wanted to do post office hours. They actually had a life after office. So people they had their entire routine set up accordingly. Would reach office early in the morning, would leave by 5:30ish, and they had plans basically after office, which we don't tend to have much. Um, so that was the first striking thing that I noticed. Of course, related to this was the Friday evening concept, which we do not really have much. We are trying to still catch up, I think, but logging off quite early on a Friday evening, having weekend plans in terms of where we are going to travel, where we are going to eat out or meet people. This kind of culture is still not uh, still not there here. Uh, but at the same time, there were there were some other aspects as well that I felt were kind of different. We're more in India here. We're more uh, connected with the colleagues. Like some of my best friends are the people who I met at work.
Mm.
That wasn't really the case that I felt there. Everyone, while being quite uh, quite professional, quite uh, competitive, but everyone was restricted to themselves. The conversation in terms of any personal connect, uh, that's that's kind of cold, I felt. But maybe that's also because how we typically as Indians are generally warmer.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you not
This
feel
thing
so,
about
like when you meet your colleagues or
no, I don't notice this
okay?
difference. I've never noticed this. I mean, I did notice it in a different way. So, for example, when I was doing my PhD, everyone else was also doing a PhD at the same department at the same time. Was a friend, was like a friend to me, almost by default. Even if I didn't get along too well with them, in my mind, I thought of them as friends because we were all basically on the same path towards the same goal. Similarly, when I was a master student in the UK, or before that, when I was a BSc student in Chennai, I felt the same thing. There were many uh, people who existed in my batch in Chennai that I despised. Uh, but I still, to this day, I consider them friends. And like, these are all people that you and I both know. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But for example, now I'm not a student anymore. So I'm a postdoc fellow, postdoc researcher. So the people around me are my colleagues by definition, and they can be my friends if I, let's say, make that happen, or if I allow them to be friends, or if they allow me to be to be in their like friend circles. And I never quite feel like wanting them to be friends with me, and that's a difference. But in in your case, the difference would have been from a different side, because of course here you were working in a corporate setting, corporate environment, both in the UK and in India. And you're saying even then, in India, people feel, I mean, it is very easy or very commonplace for people to be friends with people, their colleagues. At least
Yeah,
you're saying that that has been your experience.
yeah. So it's not that anyone is rude there. People are super sweet. So don't get me
Mm,
wrong there. Uh, but it's just the kind of connection that you feel when you first meet people. And
mm,
in fact, I think it would be wrong to generalize a particular country as such because
mm,
so I recently visited Liverpool and London both. This was something like 4 months ago, and the Liverpool team. So people had been there working in the same company for more than 10 years, 15 years. So everyone knew each other's families. Everyone um, they were super connected amongst themselves. So it was easy for me to gel in because that is how people introduce themselves. That oh, this person is coming from this particular place. He's traveling from so far, and he has a wife there. He has
mm,
kids. Um, the London office, on the other hand, was quite different. Maybe because of the people themselves not being too familiar with each other. So people didn't know where exactly the other person lives. Yeah, he lives 2 hours away from the
mm,
work, but where exactly? Oh, I don't know. So I
mm,
think it also depends on how interconnected people already are. So any new person. So
mm,
for me, uh, visiting visiting a place where it's there's already a very close bond that makes a lot of difference.
yeah, I mean that I can understand. Also, like of course, this is very much a stereotype about London people or London as a city. in general, that if you're there, you don't really make friends with people like by default. Like just because there is someone living in the same building as you, there is someone working at the same floor as you, doesn't mean that you and him or her are going to be friends. I mean, you can be
Right.
friends, but that will require a considerable amount of effort from your side. No, I mean, I want to focus on another thing that you said, and that was about this Friday factor.
Mm.
So I have read this. Well, I've heard this being said about the Indian corporate working culture, that people don't mind overworking, and that can lead to, or that can make it easier for people who want to exploit this trait
True.
and be toxic towards newcomers or interns or people who are willing to do anything to get a promotion or to get a bonus. Is that true? Like, I mean, is that true? I mean, sorry, is the stereotype more true than false?
I would agree.
Yeah.
But I think that's also because of the way that we as Indians are. We're generally a lot more competitive. We we take pride in the fact from childhood itself that, oh, I managed to do this just at the age of 5 years.
Mm, mm,
I'm able to multitask between so many different skills. I can, I'm the topper of the class kind of an attitude that we've grown up with. Um, so we want to succeed quickly. We want to just
yeah.
be there before the others. And that's how, just how inherently things are. And also because of the fact that India as a country has a lot more people willing to work than the positions that are available. So everyone has that fear that if they do not outperform, they won't have a value here,
Someone else
which
will
is
take their
what
place.
exactly. So which is what makes us just overwork. We want to get early promotions. We want to get super high bonuses. Mm, that that entire charm about rewards and recognitions. So I agree that, in fact, I myself, I would say I've overworked a lot of times. And that's a difference that I see there. And in fact, when I said about Liverpool, people being there for 10 years, 15 years. So that kind of a stability that people have, I felt in UK, they're happy doing their jobs. They don't want to change. They don't want to switch or explore um, another company just because that company is giving them, say, X% increment, which
Right.
is not really the case here. Here in
Mm.
India, we keep switching jobs after a couple of years. We want to try out something different. We want to just know everything in and out. So that
Yeah.
kind of a stability, sticking to one place kind of an attitude is not really there. So if we
Yeah.
know that we are in a particular place only for a very short span of time, we would want to do everything that we can.
Yeah. I mean, there are a few factors maybe that make this happen, or that sort of have been there in the social reality of India or of Indian societies for 40, 50, 60, 70 years. So one factor could be that since most of us are either children of or grandchildren of like the first post-colonial generation,
Correct.
um, people who saw abject poverty, people who saw like economic deprivation and sort of vowed to themselves that they will make it better for their children or for their descendants. It is ingrained in us, or let's say we are often very heavily encouraged socially to look for jobs, or once you're at a job, to do things that will make it more likely that you'll get a higher income, or that you will be given something
Mhm.
that will make it easier for you to have a better standard of living, have a better life. Whereas in the UK, and I saw this in some other kinds of jobs as well, this factor is very much absent. So, for example, if you're making a certain amount of money and some other company, like some company that is not the company you're currently at, offers you offers you a salary that is a little more than what you're currently getting, there is no guarantee in most British cities that that higher salary will imply a better life.
Correct.
I mean, the rents are pretty much the same. Like, what will you improve? Like, most of the basic amenities of life are things that you have already. It's not like you don't have something now that is very fundamental to a good life, which you can have once you have a higher income, or once you have an income that is slightly higher than what your current income is. Whereas in India, that factor is very much there even now. So I know this from the circles of like postdoc jobs. There are certain universities and certain institutes that offer a certain salary for postdocs, and there are some other universities and some other institutes that offer a slightly higher salary. But say the cities are different. The city that is offering the lower salary is Mumbai, where cost of living is very high, and the city that is offering the slightly higher salary is, I don't know, Bhilai or Bhubaneswar, where the cost of living is considerably lower. People have to take these considerations into account and often like decide accordingly. It is true. I did not see this in the UK, at least amongst my friends. But of course, like, you can make the same case for the British context if the difference in salary or if the difference in rewards is much more pronounced. Like, if someone is making, I don't know, 5 grand a month, £5,000 a month after taxes, and someone else is making, I don't know, £2,000 a month after taxes, that is a pronounced, like, a huge difference. Whereas a difference of a couple of £100 maybe won't matter that much if you're living by yourself, or if you don't have a family to support, or if you're not thinking about, I don't know, pension funds or savings that directly. Do you think there are some other social issues that underpin the behavior of the corporate market? So I spoke with someone else on this podcast before we started recording the conversations, which is a bit strange because if you're not recording, how is it a podcast? It's just a Zoom call. So this was 3 years ago, and I was speaking to a friend about how social equations, like, just because someone is 20 years, 30 years, 15 years older than you have to treat them with respect, even if they say something wrong, or even if they harass you, or even if they like do things that are clearly worthy of being called out. So my friend, like my guest from that episode, made the point that this is the case in many Indian cities and in many companies, because no matter how much they want to emulate or replicate idealistic situations from abroad, or idealistic situations in general, they can't escape the fact that the people who are going to work in those offices come from societies that have these like values. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I don't think I'll be able to relate to it, to be honest, because all the offices that I have worked in, it's generally been a younger crowd. Um, so the average age would be something like 30, uh, with most of my bosses, in fact, being in their either late 30s or early 40s. Uh, so I haven't really seen this kind of an aspect, but I get where you're coming from. And in general, if I do
Yeah,
not think about it from a corporate point of view, uh,
yeah,
but generally just in terms of how we communicate in, say, the families
yeah,
or in general in the society, yes,
yeah,
that is the case. It's
yeah. Like, my
not that
friend
you
had a story.
usually have a great say when it comes to
Hmm.
speaking something when people elder than you are there.
Yeah, yeah. This the typical like the quintessential Baroka Izzat factor
Yeah.
comes in there. So my friend had this story that my friend, as in again the person that I spoke to 3 years ago, and I didn't record the conversation, as I said. So my friend had this story that she knew someone who was from, I don't know, Maharashtra, and was posted in Kolkata for a bit for an internship. And the boss in Kolkata was a Bengali, and the boss said, "Call me by my first name. Like, you don't have to call me Mr. whatever. Just call me by my first name." And his first name was something like, I don't know, Sanjay. So he goes into his office and calls him Sanjay, and this guy is now like completely irked, like unsettled, like what? And then he says in Bengali, well, he says something in Bengali, which, if translated well, would mean something like, learn your manners first. Like, just because I've told you, call me by my first name, doesn't mean you don't add a da after it. Like, like Sanjay da, Sanjay da, like that. But the thing is, he won't have said, call me by my first name. He wouldn't have said, call me by my first name, had he not been trying to emulate an idealistic work environment where everyone's equal and you're only judged by what you do. But so he is taking that extra step, shall we say, but he is still failing to make that happen because he has within him this ingrained social, I don't know, this ingrained social, what's the word, thing, that if someone is, I don't know, 5-10 years younger than me and decides to call me by my first name, that is not something, I mean, that is not okay. But okay, like on the point of the Friday thing that I was trying to bring up earlier. So what do people do in India when it's a Friday evening? Do they still overwork? Is that what you're saying?
At some places, yes.
Yeah.
So that entire concept of the offices being completely empty quite early on Friday itself, I haven't seen that in India here.
Should it not also
People
depend on
try
the
to emulate it. They do try to uh, okay, just take a leave earlier if they can, call it a day off.
yeah.
Not always. When it's a deadline, it's a deadline,
But
basically.
but should it not also depend on the nature of the project or the nature of the work that people in that office do? Like for example, I am a pure mathematician. I can leave whenever I want because my argument would be the work that I'm doing is in my head, and it just involves my head. I can be anywhere and think and not think for that matter. But yes, I mean, do you think it depends on the nature of the work, or are you saying this is a more
So my point is that
universal
even if
phenomenon?
it's the same work,
Okay, I
but
see what you mean.
so if it's the same work being done by two people, one person in say India versus one person in the West, and
Yeah.
it's not just a
Now I
UK
understand.
thing; it's the general Western thing.
Mm,
I've
mm,
worked
mm.
with people in
Okay.
US as well, and it was just a general culture that even if it's the same
Okay.
work, people will not really stay till late or overwork on a Friday evening there. Uh, but all these
And does
timelines,
this
commitments are taken very seriously, I feel, by people here. Because in fact, one of the social things that you were just talking about, I think one of the social things there is also the fact that even after so many years of independence, we still feel that we are kind of inferior.
really? Okay.
Yeah. So
Say more. Say more.
no, I don't want to give you masala.
No, you don't have to take names, but what do you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to ask you this question just now. So, this difference that you're talking about that exists in the work culture, do you think this difference translates into a difference in the quality of the work that gets done?
No, it's not in the difference in the quality. If, even that's what I'm saying. Even if it's the same work that's being done, it's just the fact that we still find it hard to say a no when it comes to someone British, someone American.
Okay. Because so the clients are people in those countries.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, that wasn't clear to me before. Okay, I see. I see. Yeah, I mean, a
And it's not
friend of
just my company, I would say, or the places that I've worked with, all the friends that I talk to.
mine.
It's the same story.
I see. Okay, that I
The
understand.
even
Now,
though
now,
companies like in my company has tried its best that we're one team. It's an expanded version of the team here that sits in India. Yes, so all those steps have been taken and we fully appreciate it. But it's, I think, just how we as people are and how we have been groomed that we still feel that, oh, we are obliged to do something for them.
okay. As you said, it's harder for them to say no, or so they think,
Yeah.
to an order or to a what's the word, to a client who is based in the UK or in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, this is new to me. I thought it was just the fact that people value working hard almost as a societal virtue in India, and that is what gets reflected in the way people work in
That is true
these
as well.
companies.
That is definitely true as well. That we, like I
Yeah,
initially said, that we want to excel. We are very competitive as just people. That's how
yeah,
we've grown up. And in fact, if I see, uh, say, people who just started their careers, the variety of work that I find people doing here in India is much wider and much more comprehensive than the variety that people do
okay,
there itself. Just because we want to learn everything, we want to do everything in the given span of time. If we are trying to achieve everything, of course, we tend to overwork.
I see. No, also, I mean, I can think of some examples from fields that are very, very different the world of um, to the world of corporate companies or to the world of academia even. So I have a friend who is a nurse, and her elder sister is also a nurse. And this elder sister works in Belfast. And this elder sister once said to me that she has a colleague who is from Kerala in India, and he overworks so much that the hospital had to put in some extra rules saying you can't work more than this many hours on a given week, and he still manages to like go past those rules and overwork, because his point is he isn't there to have a good life for himself. He's there to make money and save money and send money back home so that his family or his children can lead a better life. This obsession with making it possible for the children to lead a better life is very much I'm pretty sure the origins of this obsession are more economic than social, maybe, but it is an obsession nonetheless, because once those children grow up, they think the same thing about
Mm.
their children. And I'm starting to see that I mean, I would have thought that this thing would be like this thing would be a thing of the past by now, but I see people who are like young parents, like of our generation, like people who are in their late 20s or in their early 30s, and suddenly they are also talking the same things. I want to do this, I want to do that, because I want to save all this money so that my children can lead a better life. I don't know how genuine these thoughts are, but I'm pretty sure they think while they're saying them, or while they're uttering them, that they are being completely genuine. Do you think there is a difference in making it easier for, let's say, women to stay in the workforce well into their 40s or their 50s? If you compare UK and India, there was a study that was done ages ago about the first batch, about the women graduates of the first MBA batch of IIM Kolkata, Ahmedabad. Which was the first IIM? I think Ahmedabad. Uh, I'm not sure. Actually, no. Wait. I'm not sure. I mean, this batch graduated in the 60s, if I'm not wrong, and a friend of mine was telling me about this study. So this study looked at the women graduates of that batch and tracked their careers. Like, what did they do afterwards? And many of them started excellent jobs, and but eventually it became difficult for many of them to stay at that level and have a family. And this was not due to any fault of their own. Like, it's just because this was, I don't know, the 70s or the 60s or the 80s, where I don't know, many concepts such as maternity leave that exist today and are considered quite universal and quite fundamental didn't quite exist in today's forms. I would guess. I would guess that this was a factor. And many of these students from that batch ended up, like, when they retired, the job that they retired from was far beneath the level of the job that they got when they first like entered the workforce after their MBA. I might be misquoting this study completely, because I only know about this study because I was told about it. I never actually read this study myself. But do you get the point? Like, I know in the UK, when I was there was always this conversation: what should the university do, or what should a company do to make it easy to stop this from happening? I mean, what should the company do to make sure that they're not in a situation where employees, or like where female employees, are considering leaving or lessening their um, workload to to have a family or to have a child, and then when they want to come back, the company can't make space for them. Like, there were always these conversations happening as to what the companies or the institutions should do. So I mean, do you know what the situation is like, or if there is a difference between the British situation and the Indian situation on this case?
Be close to the situation because I haven't really personally been through that situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've seen people having quite a lot of flexibility in both the places. So there was this colleague of mine who used to work for 4 days a week, because instead of 5 days, because that is how she opted for it, and the company agreed to it. Similarly, there's a colleague there in UK who I know who works till half day because she has commitments
Half
after that.
day,
So
as in
like
like to
every
12
day,
noon, half day.
her yeah till 2:30 she works.
Okay.
So that's how they've just created their entire setup. And in fact, ever since COVID happened, this was in fact a blessing in disguise that there's a lot more flexibility than we previously had. And this is something that I think is quite similar in both the countries. There's not really a geographical advantage or disadvantage here because we have a lot more flexibility to take care of other commitments that we have other than work. Um, Maternity leaves, of course, is a very known thing, and it's by law now.
Yeah.
The duration might differ. The duration in India versus say some other countries, but here in India as well, now it's a much better position to be in ever since 2000, the last reform, I think 17 or 18, somewhere around that time,
Okay.
where it increased from 3 months to 6 months. I still know a lot of
Okay.
countries where it's still 2 or 3 months. So that situation
Yeah.
is quite good. A lot of other kind of support is provided.
I think one question uh, that still remains open, or maybe will remain open for at least one more generation, is what happens after the employees have taken the maternity leave. Do they always come back? Are they welcomed back? How are they welcomed back? There are social factors that discourage them from going back to where they were? Are there social factors that encourage them to go back to the company, but to a lesser or a lower position where there's responsibilities will be less hectic. Because I'm not, again, this is not a comment on the corporate scene, but I know about the hospitality scene where this happened in a very bad way during the COVID pandemic. So I spoke with a few people. Again, those conversations were not recorded. I don't know why I didn't record them. I spoke to a few people who worked at various big hotels in India, like as receptionists, as what's the thing? Like they were not clerks, but what's the word? Like they all went to hotel management universities, hotel management schools, got degrees in hotel management, and then they got jobs at various hotels. Um, Many of them were women, and when the COVID layoffs were happening, many of them got laid off. And many of them, like even within the circle of people that I know, were, to use a rude phrase, married off. Like they were almost explicitly forced by their families to get married. Because before the topic, whenever the topic is to come up, like the topic of marriage is to come up with them, their standard argument used to be, I have a job, I can't get married right now. But once they got laid off, many of them were sort of put into the engine of arranged marriage. And by the time the pandemic ended, they were married, and they didn't have much encouragement from like the society around them to go back into the workforce. Again, this is about like all the people that I know of who went through this experience were in the hospitality sector, as we call it. They were not in academia or even in like corporate companies. So I'm guessing, I mean, this will remain, like how society deals with this will remain an open question for quite a few more years. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Right. So
I think it's a long way
we
to
can
go.
end here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, on many other, there are some other questions where once someone leaves, a lot of encouragement is placed on them not coming back. I might be getting this figure wrong again. What's the thing? Child literacy. Child literacy rates in India. Of course, I mean, India, I mean, we are still progressing. We're still getting better every passing year, I guess. But there was a metric which looked at the number of children who left school at the age of something and didn't come back. And the leaving was due to, I don't know, illness or family issues or economic reasons. Uh, like, like the government of India website is to have like there is a there's a page on the government of India website where you can look at various statistics related to child poverty, child literacy, and this thing is to be called something. I can't remember the exact name. Like, of course, we decided to do this conversation absolutely impromptu, so I didn't bother to do any looking up. So yes, I can't remember the age as well. Like maybe let's say I don't know, 14 or 13. Like people, like children leaving school at 13 and not coming back. This used to be a huge problem. And but anyway, right. Do you have any ending comments to make on the similarities or the dissimilarities between the something about the weather?
In fact, that was one of the few things that I noticed. So when I first started going to the office there in London, every morning people used to greet and say that, oh, it's a nice sunny day today. Like, oh, it's always a nice sunny day in India. What is so special about
Yeah.
it? And
Yeah.
before that, I hadn't been in UK in the winters. So this was in October that I was talking about. And
Sure.
then it came November when uh, temperature started to fall down. There were just
Yeah.
gloomy, cloudy days all day. And that is when, after a lot of such cloudy days, when the sun came for the first time, I realized myself also so happy about that situation that, oh, it's a nice sunny day. Then
You could see
now I'm
what they
able
were
to
feeling.
exactly what they were trying to
Yeah.
relate.
And how about pollution? Because I have noticed that when I'm living in a city that is not that polluted, or when I'm living in a certain locality within a certain city that is not much polluted, and I can actually enjoy walking outside, or I can actually enjoy walking to the office from my apartment, that makes it easier for me to be cheered up at the
Yeah.
start of work every day.
Yeah.
To be cheerful at the start of work every day. Whereas, like I luckily didn't have this problem in Mumbai when I was a postdoc there at the Tata Institute, because the Tata Institute is sort of cut off
From the rest of the city.
the from the rest of the city, and everything is
Yeah.
quite clean. There are trees, and you don't feel like like pollution isn't even a problem. But when you see into the skyline, when you see into the distance, and then you see the sea and the skyline, and you see that you can't even see the tall buildings that well.
Yeah.
Because I have seen cities with excellent skylines, where most of the buildings are situated next to some kind of water, right? Like in
Yeah.
London or many other
Yeah.
places. I have seen that in a clear day you can see the buildings very clearly. But in Mumbai, I couldn't do that. And then I realized, maybe this is where pollution is playing a role.
Yeah.
So would you agree with me here that
Yeah,
in
definitely.
cities that are less polluted, it is, yeah.
Yeah. It's generally a more positive outlook that even you have.
Yeah. Have you ever worked in Delhi?
I am currently living and working in
How
Delhi.
is the pollution angle there?
Quite bad. But
No, I mean it's
you just get used to it after a point, actually. It's quite
Mm,
bad, definitely. Commuting to office is not really a great experience every day because traffic
mm,
jams, pollution,
mm,
uh,
mm.
but
Yeah.
you just get used to it.
Have you been to China?
No, no.
I mean, have you been to, like, have you seen any other city in the world with a Delhi-like pollution problem?
Uh, Manila to some extent.
Manila, Philippines.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But that was just for a
Really?
very
Okay.
short duration. But yeah, that I felt that to be quite polluted as well.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mean dirty though. I just mean like the
Yeah, polluted. Yeah,
air
yeah,
pollution.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Air
Okay.
pollution is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Because there are lots of places in Mumbai that are quite clean, but no one can do anything about the air.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm sure like the same goes with Delhi, right? There are lots of places in Delhi that are quite clean, but
yeah.
like the air is still the same air. Yeah. Okay. We can stop recording now.
Okay.